Hey guys, we're going to show you how to change your brake pads and your rotors and learn a little bit more about the brakes of a car during COVID times and help you save some money. We're first going to gather all the tools that we require. First, we're going to need this crossbar to remove the bolts on the car. In this car, it has a wheel lock, so we also need this. To gain access to the car and remove the wheel, we have to jack up the car. So we'll use the jack that came with the car. We'll need a socket set to remove the brake calipers. We'll need this brake. It's called a breaker bar. This will help us loosen up all the nuts and bolts that are difficult. We'll need a small pry bar. It'll help you gain access to the brake pads. A C-clamp to push the pistons back. A ratchet for tightening things up. A spanner, in terms of English, it's called a spanner or a monkey wrench in American. This will help us in case to tighten up anything. We need a brake cleaner to take away any dirt or any debris in the brake system. We need anti-seize. This will help lubricate and ensure things are removed easier the next time around, and more lubrication for the brakes. This one we're going to use a silicone brake lubricant. This will help with your performance. And a dirty rag for the brake cleaner. The next thing we're going to do, guys, is we're going to remove the 5 lug nuts on your rims and your tires. So we're going to put this one in here first. We're going to put it in here, give it good strength, mighty might. Gonna turn it, and it turns. Then we're gonna go to the next bolt. We're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna loosen it up. The next thing, we're gonna do the next bolt, loosen it up, and then the next one, just gonna loosen it up, and we're gonna take this one, and then we're gonna loosen it up. The reason why we're going to loosen up the nuts first before we jack is because if you jack up the car and you loosen up and then you start to loosen up the bolt, the wheel will spin, so you won't have any force to loosen this up. So the best idea, 100% recommendation, is to loosen up this bolt first before you jack up the car. Now we're going to jack up this car. We're going to use the jack that came with the car. It takes about 1,000 kilograms. We're going to go underneath the car. This car here has a triangle, so this is where we're going to place the jack. Once we place the jack underneath the car, we're going to raise it up. We're going to use the tool that's provided by the car, and then we're going to rotate it clockwise. This ensures the car is elevated, and once it's elevated, we can easily take the tire off. It's always good to put extra support, but in this case, I feel safe, I'm confident. So once the car is raised, I'm going to place this tool on the corner here so I won't trip, and then we're going to loosen up and remove all the bolts by hand. So that's one bolt. It's 2 bolts. Very good idea to just place it on the side so you won't lose them. 3rd bolt. Fourth. And then the 5th. Make sure there's nothing on the ground, and then you'll just be able to pull it out. So the next thing we need to do is remove this brake caliper. To do that, we have to remove this bolt here and this bolt over here. The top one and the bottom one. So first we're gonna need a regular socket wrench. It's right here. And we're gonna try a size 14 socket. I'm gonna put it in here, see if it works. And it definitely does. The reason why we're doing this is to remove this brake caliper here. So we're gonna connect the socket with the wrench. We're gonna make sure it rotates the other way, and we're gonna loosen everything up. Go from the top. We're gonna give it a little bit of force. Gonna loosen that. We're gonna loosen the bottom bolt here. Loosen that. We're gonna take these things off by hand. We're gonna place these two bolts up here on the ground. And once those bolts are taken off, we're gonna use this pry bar here to just help give us leverage and pull this off. This is called the brake caliper. And we're just gonna have this hang over here so your hydraulic lines will not be destroyed. Now, this gives us access to the brake pads. So the brake pads is one in the front here and one in the back. As you can see, they're pretty thick. We're just gonna remove it one by one. These are responsible for stopping your car. After that is done, to get access to your rotors, we need to remove this top bolt here and this top bolt here to gain access to the rotors. And in this case, we're going to use a breaker bar, an extension, and we're just going to try out several sockets, see which one will fit. I'm assuming that this socket fits a size 17. So I'm going to put a 17 here. And apparently it does. So we're going to use this breaker bar and this size 17 socket with an extension. We're going to put it over here. The reason why I'm taking this long bar is because it will give me some leverage, because these bolts here are surely going to be rusted and tight. As soon as you got the right socket set and a breaker bar, we are then going to move it to remove the bolt. Going to give it some good force. Once it's loosened, you're going to go and do the top one. Just going to give some extra light here. Just going to loosen this up here. Once that is loosened, now we can have an easier chance and access the entire bolt. We're going to grab that 17 again. We're going to use a regular socket and we're just going to loosen it up. That's one bolt. Next one. Keep going. Fell down. Gonna take that one out. Once those two bolts are removed, now we're gonna be able to remove the rotor here. Now the rotor is now removed. To recap everything, before we do the next step and do reassembly, we jacked up the car, we removed the wheels and the rims, we removed the caliper bolts to gain access to the brake pads, and then we remove another two bolts to remove the rotors. Hey guys, so before we begin and put back the rotors, we have to put anti-seize compound in these areas. So I'm going to use Permatex anti-seize silver grade. Just going to put it here. just like painting. And remember, always use some gloves, right? You gotta wrap her before you whack her. Just gonna do this so it is easier to take off in the future, and it prevents any corrosion in your wheel hub as well as your rotors. Give it a nice good paint. This only costs about $8 at Canadian Tire or any other hardware store. I'm gonna put some here on the brake rotor. Just a little bit, doesn't need to be lots. Okay, once that is done, we're gonna have this turn to the left to gain access in just a bit. I'm just gonna put this rotor back. Now we're gonna have it turn to the left. Once it's turned to the left, we're gonna get some brand new gloves. And then we're gonna put back the caliper bracket. So to put the caliper bracket, we're gonna make sure that these holes will line up. I'm gonna put this in here. Make sure this is straight. In she goes. I'm gonna put the top bolt here. Make sure it goes in. We're gonna put the next bolt here. Another bolt. We're gonna now take a 17 and we're gonna tighten it up using a breaker bar. One good squeeze. Use this one, make sure it's squeezed. Make sure it's tight. Your safety is important. 3, 4, 5, 6. Just to recap, we put the rotors back on and we tighten up this and this bolt here. Gonna give it one more good squeeze just to make sure. So next, this is the caliper bracket, and once that's installed back and the rotor's back and installed, we're gonna put the brake pads back. To make sure that this is correctly placed, we have to make sure that the groove here is marked with the groove there and it goes in here. So just gonna slide there in here, make sure it fits, and she must go in. Once she goes in, we're gonna do that on the other side. So make sure it's grooved in there. It's gonna take some time. So once those are both in, as you can see, they're tightened. We're going to put a little lubrication here and here. So we're going to take a brake silicone. Just going to lubricate it here. Just a little bit. The next one. There. And then we're going to return back this brake caliper. We're going to make sure that this C-clamp is flushed. I mean this piston. The reason why we're going to push this piston in is so we can put this back together. If it's pushed out, it'll be very difficult to put the brake pads in and this at the same time. So we're going to do this. So we're going to put this C-clamp in here. As you can see. So this, we're going to take this C-clamp here and we're going to push it in. So once it's in, you'll see that it pushes back. So once it's pushed in, we're going to push the piston inside. There it goes. Now it's in. We're going to take out the C-clamp out. And make sure the rotors are in. Put this in here. We're going to put the top bolt in here. And we're going to put the second bolt in here. Give it a little bit of a shimmy. Once that is done, we're just going to tighten everything up. Gotta make sure that it's going clockwise this way. So now we're just going to tighten everything up. We're going to tighten up the top one. It doesn't matter if you do the bottom or the top first. I'm just doing the top. So once that is tightened, we're going to do the next one. Give it good tight. Next one. Now the entire brake assembly is put back in. We are just going to put the tires back on. So next thing, guys, when the brakes are fully assembled, you put a new rotor, put a new brake pad, you're going to put the tire back in. Gotta make sure they're aligned. This, you're gonna put the first bolt in, the second one in. Easier if you use the key. Next one. Once that is done, we are going to now lower the car using the jack, and then we'll tighten up the bolts rest of the way once the tire is on the ground, so that it doesn't move back and forth, as you can see here. So that's why we got to put the tire back down. So the jack is here. Take the tool. We're going to go counterclockwise and lower the car. So we're going to use the wheel lock. We're going to use this cross wrench. We're going to tighten up that crisscross or diagonal just to evenly distribute the force. So we're going to crisscross here. We're going to go at the top here. Give it a good squeeze until it's tight. We're going to crisscross at the bottom here. Now rotate this. I'll rotate the other one here. I'll rotate this one here. Now we're gonna really tighten and make sure everything is fit snug. We're gonna give everything a good turn. One up here, across up here. I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna go up. I'm gonna go down again. Other side. Make sure everything is crossed. Tighten. Just so when you're driving, the wheel doesn't fall off. Now, that's everything. That's how you change brakes on any car, and specifically a 2006 Scion TC. Now that's how you disassemble and reassemble car brakes.